Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's time for Knife AQ number 11, the series where I answer all your knife questions, both big and small. Got some cool stuff to answer this week, got some camp cooking questions, some stuff about some cool copper stuff, as well as some alternatives to some discontinued items. Let's do it. All right, before I dive into the questions, folks, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. I know I've asked you guys to do that a few times of late. This is sort of, it's not something I like to do. I don't like to pressure you guys into subscribing, but we're really hoping by the end of the year to have doubled our subscriber count in 2020 by hitting the 100,000 subscribers. So it's our PBS pledge drive season right now. If you love the content we're doing here, if you haven't subscribed yet, would really appreciate it if you could. But that's enough of that. On to the questions. All right, our first question comes from Ken DeCrosta. He says, "Hey David, love the series and everything on the channel." Thank you very much, sir. "I'm curious if you have any recommendations similar to the Gerber 39 series in micarta." This is a discontinued knife, so we'll pop a picture up here so you guys can see it. It says, "Since it's no longer in production, he doesn't carry it for fear of losing it. Do you know of any knives with similar blade profile as well as a canvas or wood handle scale? Furthermore, if it has a thumb disc or plate, that would be awesome, but not mandatory, ideally under $200. Cool question. I actually had to look that knife up myself because I didn't remember it, but it's a pretty cool one. But there's not a whole lot out there like it, so I understand why you're having a little trouble. But that's what I'm here for. Let me help you out. I actually didn't find anything with a thumb disc that I thought really nailed it. I did find a thumb disc option, so I'll show that first. The Emerson A100 has a similar profile to that Gerber, bit longer. We're about a 3.6 inch blade, so you got, I don't know what, almost another half-inch blade over that Gerber. But you do have a thumb disc. You've got 154 cm steel with a stonewash finish on the flats. Titanium liners, I believe. They're usually titanium. Let me check. Yes, they are aerospace grade titanium with, of course, G10. So definitely a hard working knife. Emerson's have always worked very well. Folds up nice and easy, but maybe not quite as fancy or nice, quote unquote, nice as that Gerber. So I have another option there, which unfortunately doesn't have the thumb plate, but it's an Italian-made knife. It's the MKM Clap, which is a Bob Terzola design, and these are really cool knives, I think. Now you can get them in canvas micarta or in a few different species of wood as a handle option with or without bolsters. Unfortunately, the bolstered version, which I have here, and the green micarta, I think looks closest to that Gerber, but they're a bit over 200. They're about 234, but a non-bolstered one comes in just under 200, so it hits the marks there. Blade length is 3 inches here, so a little bit shorter, but not by too much, or at least it doesn't feel like it's a smaller knife when you hold it. You definitely feel like you've got a good amount of working blade there. M390 steel, a little bit of a compound grind going on, so it's a little more complex in the grind than that Gerber, but it has a similar vibe. It's obviously a little bit of a different shape, but I really like this as a potential option for you there. Beyond that, it does have a flipper. That flipper is removable if that's your thing, but I wouldn't, because then it gets hard to open one-handed. You kind of have to pinch. Yeah, I'm not even doing a very good job there. But you've got ball bearings in the pivot with that flipper, so the action's nice and good. Liner lock, cool handle, nice milled pocket clip there on the side. And again, a few different handle options. There's some olive woods, I think a Santos mahogany. It may not be those, but those are what the Italians usually use. Olive wood is often an option from them, but it's just a really cool knife, feels very premium, and it's not discontinued, so you can get your hands on one now. All right, our next question is from Kirk Killian. He says, "Question, good, you're come to the right place. I'm compiling an EDC ensemble for my wife. Christmas tree emoticon, winky face emoticon." I get it, I understand. So far, I've ordered the Olight pen flashlight combo in copper. Can you suggest a lightweight knife option following the copper theme? I'd like an upgraded steel and wouldn't mind swapping in copper scales to achieve the effect. Cool. Lightweight and copper don't always mix. Obviously, copper's a heavier metal than a lot of things, so I'll stick to some smaller knives to hopefully hit what you need. One cool thing is always the Kershaw Cinder, but you're not going to get an upgraded steel with this. It's a pretty basic 3CR stainless, but it is a good keychain knife, so that could be an option for you. But I think the best option would probably be the Kershaw Leak in copper, and I'm not going to pull it out of its vacuum-packed bag here because I don't want to get my fingerprints on it. But these come with a CPM 154 blade upgrade, which is quite nice, and these come in about 96 bucks right now. American made, slim Wharncliffe profile. This could be a good knife for men or women because you've got that nice kind of elegant, refined, narrow profile without a huge handle, so it's going to be easier to hold even if you've got smaller hands. If she's going to carry it in her purse, there's always the slide lock here on the back to keep the blade from opening. Just, I think, a really good option, honestly. Not too heavy, obviously not ultralight, but it's only about 4 ounces. And again, that's kind of thanks to the small platform that it's built on. There's another option. You could go with something from Civivi. This is the McKenna, and it comes with a black stone-washed copper handle. So it's maybe not as bright. I'm not sure how bright your pen that you bought her is, but it's definitely not as bright as that higher satin finished Kershaw Leak. But of course, that Leak is going to get darker over time as oils kind of take hold. But this is another cool, slim, copper-handled knife. It's designed by Elijah Isham. We've got a Damascus blade here, and their Damascus is based on a 9CR series stainless steel. So roughly 440C levels of performance. That's why I mentioned the Leak first, since you were asking for upgraded blade steel. But I think this is also a very cool option. Now, if you didn't like the blackened stonewashed look, you could always actually polish that down a little bit if you wanted to bring out some of the copper, or that might be good to go right as it is. Nice slim construction, pocket clip, deep carry there. This is a front flipper design, so it's a little bit trickier to open typically, but as far as front flippers go, I've actually found the McKenna to be pretty easy, as I've not always been the best at that mechanism myself. But I do like this as an option. Price on this one is also in the 90 range. It's about $93.50. Now, if you're looking for an option for swapping out the scales onto an existing knife, there's a bunch of stuff. We carry a lot of Flytanium's products, so you can take a look at their copper selection on our site and see if there's a knife that works there. But another knife I often like to recommend for carry in the purse is the Spyderco Delica. I've got one of our exclusives right here with the HAP 40 blade steel. But let me, again, I'm not gonna open the copper scales here, but some copper stonewashed Delica scales look pretty good, I do think. But yeah, another cool option for you there. You don't have to pick up the exclusive version, of course. I think the Delica starts in the $80 range, and these scales come in at about $60. So it's getting a little bit pricier, but it's another cool option. But again, I think, for me personally, I think the Leak is where it's at. That one's right on the money. All right, our next question is from Feed. He says, hello, David, that's me. I'm writing to you the following. Do folding knives have to be lubricated periodically? How often, and what would be a sign that they need maintenance? Thank you very much, and greetings. Greetings to you, sir. What would be a sign that they need maintenance? Would be if your action is a little gritty, in which case you can drop a little oil in the pivot. There's no magic rule to how often. It's going to vary depending on your environment. Sorry for the clicking of the knife there. If you're in a maritime environment or a particularly dusty environment, it could be very different than where I am here in Central Virginia. I almost rarely ever need to lubricate my knives, but again, there's no magic number. If it starts to feel gritty or it's not opening as good as maybe it used to, just a few drops of oil in the pivot. There's all kinds of cool products out there you can use. I'm often, myself, I love to recommend mineral oil because it's food safe, it's cheap. You can get it from us. You can use it for all kinds of stuff too, besides just knife lubrication. All right, our next question comes from Shawnee Union. What would you recommend for a first side opening automatic? Easy answer, anything from Kershaw's Launch series. Hands down. Fantastic series of knives. Like most automatics, well, any automatic you can buy in this country is made in the USA. You've got really good materials, aluminum handles and CPM 154 blades, and they're really competitively priced. My actual first side opening automatic was the Launch 1, which I love this knife. It's just a fantastic design. Comes in just under $100. I don't know if the blue version is still available. You have to check theknifecenter.com to find out. But there are some other colors also. But I love the blade shape on these knives. I'm a big fan of blades oftentimes with a continuous curve to the edge, which you've got going on right here. The blade steel is not super thick, and it's an appropriate thickness. And it's actually nice and wide with a very high flat grind. So with that type of edge profile and that geometry, this is a very, very efficient slicer of a knife. And that's one of my personal top priorities when I'm picking most of my knives. And even with that, you've still got a very nice acute tip and something a little interesting going on there with the spine. So it's not just a simple drop point. It's a little bit slightly spruced up drop point, but I really like it. And as far as the action on these knives, you'll often hear me say, I put the Launches action up there with knives that cost at least twice as much. They're just very, very good. Push the button, flies out every time, no problem. And yeah, just this design is really cool. I love it. I love it. Hidden lanyard point, nice pocket clip for each side, just a simple folded affair, not deep carry, but that's quite all right. Yeah, whichever Launch strikes your fancy, but I really love the Launch one myself. All right, our next question is from Michael Manilang. He says, "Hi David." Hi Michael. "I'm looking for the perfect camp kitchen knife as a gift for a friend who does all the cooking when we all go camping. Should be thin enough for food prep, have a blade guard or sheath for portability, and stainless steel if possible. Budget around $100. I could just buy a random kitchen knife, but I'm looking for something more outdoorsy, if that makes sense." Yes, it does make a lot of sense to me. In fact, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my idea of the perfect camp kitchen knife is my own design. It's the Nordsmith canteen knife. Unfortunately, this knife is going to blow your budget way out of the water. These aren't available right now, but I'm looking for the next batch to be available before Christmas, but they are going to be over $300. But this is the perfect camp kitchen knife, if I do say so myself. But more on that later. I had to mention it since you used those words. But in terms of in terms of a more affordable option, there are a few things I can show you. And what you're going to want to do is kind of look to history for the types of knives you want. And what I mean is you look for the knives that kind of helped conquer America, so to speak. The early knives that were used on the frontier by the outdoorsmen of the era. And for that, I've actually got an option here that does come with a sheath. It's the sheath. It's the Old Hickory 5.5-inch hunting knife. There's the saying that the 7-inch butcher knife is essentially the blade that conquered the American West. And this one's that heritage, just a little bit shorter, and comes with a simple leather sheath. And the prices on these are really good too. They come in about $23, or just under 24, I should say. Carbon steel though, so you're not going to get the stainlessness, but it's just a classic little pattern for all kinds of outdoor stuff. It's going to do some butchering, it's going to do some food prep. But there is a more modern version, or a more modern knife that I actually think channels a similar spirit, and that's the new Kershaw Camp 5 here I have at the top. This is a D2 steel knife, so it's semi-stainless. Definitely more stainless than that carbon steel Old Hickory. These come in at about $60. You've got a full flat grind on here with a swedge, so the slicing profile is actually quite good. It's less of a hand-filling grip and more of a precise type of handle on it, but there's a little bit of a kick up to it, so that if it's not so much knuckle clearance, you can go to town on just any old cutting board, but if you're hanging off the side of a cutting board, you can do some like mincing type of stuff with herbs and that sort of thing, garlic, and you've got enough length to do longer cuts of meat. That's about just under 5 inches on this blade. Really cool design, one of my favorites of the year actually. Simple sheath, but very effective. Slides in there. You've got some positive retention. You've also got a strap here. You've also got some options if you want to add something like a tech lock for some different types of carry. And even if your friend decides not to carry it on his belt, that package right there thrown into your camp cooking box is going to be very effective. And that knife's actually the most expensive one I'm going to show you today for options, because I'm never been super satisfied with all the camp cooking options, which is why I designed my own. But there are some good ones. Just they tend to skew onto the lower end of the material spectrum, but they can still be quite nice. Which is case in point, this Spyderco Bow River. It's a Phil Wilson design. Comes in about 38 bucks. We've got HCR stainless steel and a black and white G10 that looks really good. Definitely looks more premium. This one comes with a leather sheath, but I actually don't have it in front of me because this particular one was actually modified a little bit by our Instagram guru, Seth, in that he sharpened the entire edge on this knife so it comes all the way back past the heel. Normally these are only sharpened, there's a little bit of section here left unsharpened, and that's a safety measure. So if you're worried about the lack of a blade or a index finger guard, this would that would help. But be that as it may, this is still illustrative of a really good pattern for camp cooking. You've definitely got a little bit of knuckle clearance here with that shape and the offset to the handle, so you can do that mincing. But it's a great slicing knife, good hunting knife, good fishing knife, good steak knife too, for sure. Very nice, and that's a very affordable option, as I said. Lastly is one more, the Ontario Hunt Plus Camp Knife. And this is another one that I think really looks back to the frontier days. This really, you can kind of think of this as a modern day version of the old French pattern trade knives that made such a big impact in the wilderness in the earlier days of our country. 35 bucks, just under, for this particular knife. So for that, obviously you're not getting a premium steel, it's just a 420 HC, but it's fairly thick. So you've got some good strength there for the camp tasks, but you've still got a high or a full flat grind for it, so you can kind of pull off some of those chef knifey tasks with it. 6-inch blade here, synthetic overmolded handle. Yeah, it's your camp kitchen knife. It's your camp chef knife, really. One thing I might do is actually round the tip of the heel over a little bit, again, for a little bit of extra safety, but you do have more of a drop there, so when you're doing, you've got enough to do those mincing types of cuts, those rocking cuts, but you still have the edge far enough away from your hand when you're doing just your standard camp type of things. Simple sheath on this one as well, but again, that comes along with that nice $35 price. Just a simple nylon piece with some retention straps, but I really like the shape of it. There you go. All right, our next question is from Drew Fife. He says, I've been using the CRKT large Pilar in D2 as my work knife for over a year. Got that knife right here. He says, it's great, but I want to upgrade to a knife with better materials and finish, but a similar design. Any suggestions? Thumb hole opening is a bonus, less than $100 preferred. Yes. So the problem with the Pilar, it's not really a problem actually, but there's not a lot out there that's quite like it. So this is kind of a hard question. There's a few things you could take a look at. I've got here a knife from the same designer, that being Jesper Vaknes. I've got the MKM Asanzo, which it's a smaller knife, as you can see, so it might not have everything you need size-wise. And the handle material is not a significant upgrade either. It's an FRN handle, but you have N690 blade steel, so it's definitely a bit more premium. Finger choil's not as large here, but you've got kind of a similar blade shape, and you've got that thumb hole. And these come in about 85 bucks, so not too bad in the grand scheme of things. But for about the same kind of money, you could also get the new version of the Civivi Mini Bull Mastiff, which I've got right here. Now, base versions of this come with a 9CR based stainless steel blade for about 50 bucks, I want to say. This has the Damascus blade, which is also based on 9CR, so you're actually not really going to see an upgrade in edge holding compared to the D2, but it is nicer, quote unquote. You did use that word. With the Damascus look, and of course you've got the carbon fiber overlay on the G10 laminate here. You do have ball bearings in the pivot, so the flipper action is going to work really well. You've got that with the CRKT that you mentioned, and also you've got the thumb hole or the thumb opening on that CRKT. You can also use the fuller on the Bull Mastiff as a thumb opener. So might not have been quite what you were thinking of, but I don't hate this Mini Bull Mastiff as an alternate option to that Pilar. You guys let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. But it's certainly got a very usable blade. It's going to be a little bit slicier than your Pilar. For one thing, the blade is wider and it has a full flat grind, and it's also thinner So it's going to be maybe a little less robust, but you will gain dividends in the outright slicing capability of that knife. Still plenty of handle to hold on to. Again, the choil's not quite as large as on that CRKT, so keep that in mind if that's important to you. But all in all, probably offers a fairly similar cutting experience in the hand as that CRKT. All right, this next question actually builds on this previous one from a user named Egoitz Salsamendi. Says, "Hey David, how are you doing?" Doing very well, thank you for asking. I have a question for your KnifeCenter FAQ. Hope it makes it. Do you have an alternative to the CRKT Pilar, which we just showed, besides the cold steel Tough Light? Because he does not like hollow grinds, he says. I mean a sheep's foot or Wharncliffe blade around 3 inches long, generous finger choil. Thank you. Well, first you can check out a couple of the two options I just showed. But like I mentioned there, the finger choils on those knives aren't quite as large. So maybe the Kershaw Static would be an option. Here, I'll hold it up next to the large Pilar right there. And I'm assuming you're talking about the large Pilar since you do mention an under 3-inch blade length. Both of these do hit that. The Kershaw Static comes in at a very affordable $39. So definitely more affordable than that MKM or that Civivi. The only reason I didn't mention this to our previous questioner is because he was looking for an upgraded experience versus the CRKT he had. And D2 is already an upgrade to the 8CR stainless steel that you're going to get on this Static. But it's still a very well put together knife. You've got a frame lock, you've got KVT bearings in the pivot, so you've got some very good flipping action, and a very generously sized finger choil here for choking up on. But check out those two side by side. Maybe not an obvious comparison, but again, I think this one does compare really well. Now I also have a kind of an outside recommendation. If you hadn't mentioned it being an alternative to the Pilar, and if I had just read your last sentence by itself, sheep's foot or Wharncliffe around 3 inches long, generous finger choil, I probably would have recommended the Spyderco Bird Meadowlark, the Meadowlark 2. This version here in G10 is about $41, just over. You've got your generous finger choil, your blade length is under 3 inches. And I've kind of always said that the blade on this knife, as well as the Delica, which this knife was based on, actually there you go, I have one in front of me, how convenient. I can kind of show you the two side by side. The blades, while not technically a Wharncliffe, have always kind of felt like a Wharncliffe in use in terms of the way they cut, the way they use, quote unquote, so to speak. A little bit of a modified Wharncliffe shape going on here, if we're honest. A little bit of belly, but you've still got a very Wharncliffe-like tip. And yeah, it's just a solid design with that type of blade. Very slicey profile, full flat grind on this steel. It is an 8CR steel. There are lightweight FRN versions as well if you want to spend a little bit less. And unlike the Delica on which it's based, you've got that generous finger choil there, so you can get choked up on that and have a lot of control over that knife. All right, that's all the questions I've got time to answer today. If you want to have the chance to have one of your own questions answered, make sure to leave it down there in the comments. And again, would love it if you folks could subscribe if you haven't already. In the meantime, if you want to get your hands on any of these knives that I showed you today, we will leave links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there, because you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next knife if you're going to put your hard-earned money down on one of these today. I got one last thing to say, and this goes out to Rick Rennick. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center signing off. I hope you all staying safe, sane, and sanitary out there. See you next time.